I'm here with Peter Lavelle, host of RT's CrossTalk. Peter, let's talk about a very big topic, but also a very personal topic for many people because it touches upon the device that many people hold in their hands, and it makes it very relatable. But this is a really big topic, and you saw it up close at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, and I want you to elaborate on what you saw and how you see the world moving. And what we're going to talk about is really the end of Western globalization. The entire project of
driven, right?
Yeah, Western-driven globalization, and what we're seeing now is essentially a divided world. I mean, the Eurasian project and the Western. Maybe you could have said the postmodernist, neoliberal. Now with Trump, I don't know how you can define what's happening now, but you're definitely seeing a world divided. So, Peter, what are your thoughts on what's happening now and what's going to be happening in the future?
Well, if you look at the media, there's always this focus on individual companies, which is of course important because, like you said, if it's Huawei or Apple, it's a device that is in our hands almost our every waking moment, unfortunately, okay, and destroying our attention spans. But what is very interesting here is that we're watching unfold something that is much bigger than, and I think that when we look at blow by blow, company by company, story by story, is that what we're going to start seeing is these supply chains start to collapse and then reorient themselves within these two major infrastructure technology spaces. The Chinese driven one, which Russia will be part of, and a good part of Asia, even parts of Europe, I would even say. And then you have the American centric one. And they are going to be, they will most likely mirror each other because the Chinese, it's only a matter of time. And from what I've been reading, it's only a matter of months now. Well, they'll have their own OS. And once you have that, that's the keys to the kingdom. And we'll start seeing that's the kind of we'll see, right? We have companies right now, like there's a lot of focus on Apple in China. Well, the way things are going, they're going to have to reorient their production and supply chains. And that's going to be painful. It's going to hurt the bottom line. But they have the resources to do it. And so we're going to have this reorientation of supply chains for these two major spaces, these two technological spaces. And a lot of companies are going to have to make a lot of choices. There's going to be pressure from the Chinese and the Americans within their own spheres to make companies, even countries, make choices. Okay, you're either with us or you're not, or you're going to be incompatible with our world. You're going to have to decide. Okay, I mean, you don't even have to be threatening about it. I mean, the U.S. is always threatening about it because it's always sanctioning somebody. Okay, but the Chinese going to say, here's our OS, and this is what we operate, and it's from Shanghai all the way to St. Petersburg, north and south, and that's what we use. And if you want to be part of our world, that's what you're going to have to use. See, the U.S. has done that ever since the advent of these high technologies. They've always forced their allies to use them because they're predominant. Now, for the first time, the United States is confronting a peer of equal standing. Now, of course, not militarily. Of course, not maybe GDP, which I think they're almost comparable right now. They're certainly peers. The United States has never confronted this, and I think they're really scrambling how to deal with it because it's just not, I mean, so much more complex. And it's about sectors, it's about companies, about individuals. And I think, as you appropriately pointed out in the beginning of this recording, what you hold in your hand. Because I was in St. Petersburg at the International Economic Forum. I mean, the Chinese there were there in force. I mean, hugely. Okay, CGTN were doing programs there, and a number of agreements were signed, and they were about exactly what we're talking about. Technological infrastructure, and Russia is going to be part of that. And it'll get to the point where your device is only going to work with one system, and you're going to have to choose that system.
You mentioned a term before we did this video, which I think is a really nice term: Eurasian information infrastructure.
Yep.
I think that kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
Yep, exactly. And it's completely voluntary, because if you want to be where the growth is, you're going to be part of that infrastructure. And that's where you want to be, because irrespective of how you feel about China, everyone knows it's the factory of the world. I mean, it actually makes a lot of stuff, and you want to be part of that. You want to be part of the Road and Belt Initiative, where you're going to be part of that growth process here. And it's happening. As much as the U.S. wants to wish it away and the threatening Chinese, well, yeah, I mean, I guess the Chinese are threatening because your hegemony is going down the tubes, and it's going down fast. Now, the U.S. should actually completely rethink itself. I mean, and this is where I'm going to surprise a lot of people, is that this confrontation that we're seeing, it's civilizational also. This is about a civilization. And the U.S. and its allies in Europe, they are in dire straits right now, because Europe and the United States are doing everything they can to destroy identities, okay? You know, what it means to be American, what it means to be European. You know, are they going to rebuild Notre Dame the way it should be, or are they going to turn it into a shopping mall, okay, or a Disneyland? I mean, see, the other civilization knows what it wants. It knows where it's going, and it believes in itself and its values on steroids. And then you have the West that is just sleepwalking into self-destruction, into hedonism, narcissism. I mean, they're going to be easy to knock out, okay, really, because they won't even fight to survive. This is what has happened to Western culture. It has no will to survive, okay? It's really quite amazing what's going on.
Can you say, Peter, that the battle is going to be for Europe? Because you have Eurasia moving, you said, all the way from Shanghai to St. Petersburg. But, I mean, it wants more. It wants to get all the way to Lisbon. And then you have the U.S. with NATO and the EU already entrenched. And the EU and NATO has made a push to try and get into Eurasia. You could say Georgia. You could say Ukraine. You could say what's happening in Iran. And you can go even further and maybe say even, you know, meddling in places like Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan, say. But, you know, there's no doubt that both forces are they're meeting in the middle here. And the battleground, once again, is Europe.
Well, the Europeans, I mean, it was very interesting because President Xi recently had a grand tour of Europe. And a lot of Europeans, even Macron, bent over backwards, and Merkel as well, is to pull out the red carpet. They already have a lot of trade with China, huge trade with China. And then they have the Americans sanctioning German cars, okay? I mean, the U.S. is using the wrong tools right now. And the Chinese have a very different approach right there. And it's obviously that you can join if you want. No one is coerced to join in these projects. But, I mean, Europe desperately needs infrastructure, desperately. I mean, the Americans can't even build a speed monorail. I mean, I don't know how, it was like $300 million they spent on research and development in California, and then they went bust, okay? And the Chinese could do it for them for probably half the price and be twice as good. But they won't. They won't do it. I think you're right. I think that well, it's really going to be, I was going to say the soul of Europe, because Europe doesn't have any soul anymore. It'll be, it'll have a lot to do about the destiny of Europe. Right. I really do think that. Yeah, I really do. I mean, there's so much America fatigue in Europe right now. And it's because of Trump for some reason, but other reasons, you know, that are longstanding. And we have also these new populist groups that are popping up, and we saw in the European election. For the most part, not 100%, but for the most part, they're actually open to opening overture. Okay, again, a sign that this anti-Russian bloc that the U.S. is trying to corral it's fading. The Europeans are getting tired of the sanctions as well, and so we see that happening. And the Chinese they just want to trade. They're good at it. Okay, nothing succeeds like success, and that's why it's turning a lot of heads. And I'll say it, and it really hurt the pride of Americans, but Chinese make good stuff now. They're not just copying it. They're not just stealing it. I did a CrossTalk last week. And one of the guests, she was a very nice lady, but she said it's all about intellectual property theft. And I said, that's not what it's all about. It's all about who's going to have hegemony, okay? Who's going to be calling the shots? Who's going to be following? That's what this is all about. This is exactly what it's all about. And the U.S. and its allies can't comprehend. And I'll say the obvious here, because it's a non-Western society that is the new peer on the stage. It's China. It's Han civilization. Something the West, modern West, we actually define the modern world by a Western colonization exploration. That is the beginning of what most historians call the modern world. Okay, so this is that's a span of about 500 years. This is a big deal, folks. You know, I'm not going to quote Joe Biden, but this is a big deal. Okay.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. Absolutely, and
it's much bigger than what's being reported.
Oh yeah, well, it's a big deal, but it's very difficult to report on it because a lot of people just don't have a grasp, especially in the Western mainstream media. You know, I can't imagine Brian Stelter or Anderson Cooper actually tackling a subject like this, or Don Lemon actually, trying to explain what's happening. To his credit, I've seen, for example, Tucker Carlson has, segments on China, and he labels it the China threat, which kind of shows a recognition that he sees China is, the U.S.'s main competitor on the world stage.
Yeah, but I would say it's the Washington consensus that is the threat to the United States. Their whole approach in dealing with China. Okay, the U.S. will not recognize it as a peer, and this is the fundamental flaw. Because if you look at history from ancient to the present, it's about great power interests. I mean, you don't have to like a power. You deal with it. I mean, It's reality on your doorstep. But the U.S. will not do that because too many people take pride in exceptionalism. And I think that's their blind spot. It's their blind spot is exceptionalism. And that's going to be what's going to be most painful, because it will be like short-circuiting. I mean, how could these people, these Chinese people, improve on an operating system? They even have one. How'd that happen? Microsoft couldn't do it. They're going to be open to so many shocks because they're not prepared for it psychologically. I would just say, look, I mean, Trump's, he says, you better make a deal now because the next time we negotiate, it'll be even tougher. I would say to the president the other way around. Why don't you get the best deal you can now, because you're going to get a harder one later.
Yeah, that's a good point. To close it out, to bring it up to today, Peter, we have the G20 in about, I believe, 10 days. So it's right around the corner. And let me read you a title via Zero Hedge in an excerpt. It says, Wilbur Ross warns not to expect a U.S.-China deal at G20 meeting. To anyone expecting a major breakthrough at the June 28-29 Osaka G20 meeting, Wilbur Ross has a simple message. Don't. What do you make of that, Peter?
Yeah, I read that this morning. I think, unfortunately, the way Trump couched the entire G20 and President Xi, I think he made a terrible mistake, because it's going to be about loss of face. And again, there's that element of understanding what your competitor, even your adversary, if you wish, how they think. And you need to put yourself into their shoes. That's what they did during the Cold War. Okay? They don't do it now. And so what Trump has done, I guess it was a tweet, that it's a personal affront to President Xi. So if Xi shows up, it looks like he's submissive to Trump's demands, and that can't go down diplomatically well with President Xi and his people. Okay? And I'm sure that's the way it's being portrayed in China. So it's almost, if he hadn't said that, there could have been an opportunity for them to talk, or even say, hey, look, we've talked for 2 hours and we've set up a timetable. We're going to see what we can improve over the next 3 months, and then the next 3 months, and then the next. Right. See, you could have finessed it. You could have finessed it and saved face. But the way Trump approached that, if you don't show up and talk to me, you're going to get more tariffs. That is just simply irresponsible. Okay? Because as I've been trying to stress here, this is their line, and we need to be careful in how we look at it and analyze it. Okay, because this is a game changer. This is a game changer.
Yeah,
for ways that we could talk about for hours.
Yeah, it's like Trump. By sending that tweet and that message to Xi, it's like he ruined the deal before it even got underway. I mean,
it's like calling him a truant. Okay, yeah. I mean, because there's this inability, because of the Washington consensus, to accept a peer. And that is a fundamental error here. Fundamental.
All right. Peter Lavelle, host of RT's CrossTalk. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. click on the notifications bell and smash that like button. It really helps us out a lot. You can donate to us as well on PayPal, Patreon, and now Subscribestar. So that also helps us out. Follow us on Instagram, @theduran_com, and go to our website, theduran.com, to see the articles that we are uploading every day. And of course, you can go to the Duran shop and pick up a magic mug or a magic shirt, which I hear, Peter, improves your IQ by at least, your geopolitical IQ, that is, by at least 100 points, maybe 150.
And guys, women love them.
and Peter knows that in Moscow, if you walk around with, with Duran merchandise, it's just a game changer. All right. Lavelle, host of RT's Crosstalk. Thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.